Good evening, everyone. This is the March 1st Charter Revision Commission meeting of the City of Norwalk. We will take the roll. Mr. McQuaid.
Here.
Mr. Witherspoon. Benita Watson.
It's Watford.
Watford. And see, even my, I know you corrected it like 4 times.
It's
And
WATFORD.
FORD, sorry, I apologize again. Benita Raleigh Watson, Watford, I say it again the correct way, here. Carl Dickens,
Here.
Angela Wasuna, and Tyler Fairbank.
Here.
Okay, and Patsy Brescia, we do have a quorum. We do have one citizen from Norwalk in the audience. I believe it's Mr. John Levy, correct? Levin. Hi, John. The minutes have been sent out to you all. Are there motion to move the minutes is in order?
I'll make a motion. I looked over them. I didn't see anything, but then again,
So you want to make a motion, Carl?
I'll make a motion that we accept
Okay,
the meetings as is.
And Mr. McQuaid has seconded. Are there any discussions on the minutes? Any corrections? Hearing and seeing no hands raised. All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes as presented. Okay, the minutes are approved unanimously. Let the record show that Mr. Witherspoon has joined us. Good evening.
Good evening.
So. Does council want to start us off this evening with reviews of our first action item, discussion of Article 10, budget issues?
Happy to do so.
Mr. Mednick?
Happy to do so, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Should I put it on the screen?
If you
Sure,
would,
that's
please.
always helpful, I think.
All right, let me see if I can. I'm going to put, if I can find it, the clean. If I can find the clean version of the, I think this is it. Tell me, do you see, is it the budget, Article 10? up on the
Yes.
screen?
Yes,
All right, good. And it's a clean one. I put the clean one on. It might be easier to go through.
it is so much easier. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, I can't see participants if they want to make a comment or question, so I don't know if the IP people can set that up for me or that I'll just hear if someone wants to make a comment. So Steve, you want to?
Yep, I'll be happy to go through. So let me, if I may, start off. I talked a little about this in the pre-meeting where it was unofficial, but Benita had raised some questions and the chair had raised some issues with me, and I expect as you're going through this, you're going to find little nits in the document, and I hope that you will, send me your cards and letters, your notes, emails, whatever. You can, you have Word documents. If you want to mark them up, please send them to me. I'm happy. You don't even have to use, the redlining function. You could just send me your version and I can do a red line against the current version of the document. But what I want to say is that there will be nits. I will miss some councilmen instead of council members. I will miss the word said. I'm trying to get rid of little things like that, ancient 19th century, early 20th century language to incorporate a modern language. Where I'm writing things from scratch, they're modern. Where I am using current provisions of the charter, because we want to honor the current structure of the government. We're restructuring the document, not the government. So I'm trying to use provisions that are in there I will miss a few things here and there. Please let me know if I've done that. And I will make sure that we work our way through the document, all the documents. And this is the one that's, you know, further along than many. But they're really, you know, the budget document is coming along. Let me point out, I talked to the CFO today. I was shocked. I had another issue. I was dealing with pension issues for Chapter 7. I'm on Chapter 7, by the way, almost done. Once I'm done with 7, all I have left is Chapter 8, and then I have done all the restructuring. Then it's a question of just continuing to refine those sections and get them over to you, and we'll start discussing it. But I did speak to Henry, and he was very apologetic. I said to him, I understand where he is, but at some point he's going to have to give us his final comments on the budget section. I told him I was hoping that the commission would tentatively approve what we have thus far in this section to kind of get through the process. And he agreed that he would obviously try to come through at the earliest possible time. So I'm hoping in the next few weeks he will get a break once all the documentation is in, that he will be able to give us some time. So what's missing here right now, you see it on your screen, is subsection D. You know, there's still those blanks in this section called the budget calendar. Once we are complete with the document, I will then list there what the budget calendar looks like. And the idea of listing it in the charter is that they can use that as a template for members of the public. Carl raised this issue in an email, and we talked about it briefly in the pre-meeting, where members of the public don't really know when things are happening and why things are happening. There may be members of the council and even the Board of Estimate that don't know these things either. The purpose of the budget calendar section is to put in one place, from 1 to 7 or 10 or whatever the number is, the steps that are in the process in a linear chronological way, so that everybody understands it. So that's something that has not yet been completed. So I'm hoping that once we come up closer to a final version, that budget calendar section will be completed. The next area where there is some concern is in subsection B. The president of the council, who's also the chair of the finance committee, Greg Burnett, raised some concerns about the ability of the Board of Education to get their submissions in by December 15th. Madam Chair, I do recall at one point you were thinking about inviting the Board of Ed
Yes.
to appear. Maybe not a bad thing to do for our next meeting. So maybe
I think that's a good idea. Yes.
Yeah, so that maybe we can address that issue with them. I don't see why they can't. They should be able to do it. They have their own staff that's pretty substantial, and the Board of Ed might just have to have a special meeting and not wait till January and just get it done when every other department gets it done. But that's the only outstanding issue that remains in that section of the document. We're probably going to eliminate subsection C. I'm waiting for Henry to get back to me on this. I think it's a redundant section. I think we deal with it in another place. That's an outstanding issue on that page. I am going to give you more modern language on the use of the every tax laid by the board shall be laid upon the assessment list of the city last completed. I will give you some updated language. I was going to talk to Henry about that as well, in terms of what the terminology that is used by finance officials in the modern parlance. I mean, I know what it means, and I think we could probably figure out what it means, but we shouldn't have to figure out. If it's in your governing document, you should understand what it means. So I've left that highlighted for the time being as an issue that that needs to be addressed. In 10-5, again, this is a Henry issue. The issue is right now we have a standard where the CFO or other designee of the mayor will cause the mayor's operating budget to be published at least 5 days before the fourth Monday of February. And we've come up with dates for just about everything else. So I have a question to Henry about coming up with a locked in, the fixed date. Again, not a major issue, but something that is unresolved at this moment. We will fix that at some point, obviously before we take a final vote on the entire charter, obviously. Maximum limit, the language. Right now, I just want to make sure at some point, I want to go through an exercise probably with the council leadership to see if this standard is the standard they want in this section. I want to make sure that they're comfortable with the affirmative vote of a majority of the entire membership. So that requires an absolute majority, regardless of how many people are there that night. It's an absolute majority of the entire membership, not of those who are present and voting. I want to make sure they're comfortable with that language. It makes sense on the budget to have a higher standard, but I didn't want to make that assumption. I wanted to get their final word on that. Subsection B, you'll see this repeated later. You remember we have in Norwalk, you have referendum provisions. It's not a true referendum, but it's a right a right of petition once the budget is established. That, as I went through it with some other public officials in Norwalk, a lot of people didn't realize they have the provision, although Patsy might be able to tell us whether it's ever been utilized, but it does exist. This provision exempts this part of the budget process from the referendum. The only thing that goes to referendum is the final action. And this is repeated in a couple of places. What I want to do is when I get ready for the final draft, I'm probably going to have a provision right up front saying that section this is not included in section that is not included in the referendum, rather than repeat it 2 or 3 times, as you will see it is throughout the document, throughout the charter document. Is the print large enough? Everybody's
Yeah.
sees it well? Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm in the garage looking at it.
Okay. And again, and again, this is another voting standard. This is for amending the maximum limit of the total appropriations. The council has a second shot at raising the cap, and I want to make sure they're comfortable with the standard. Again, not a substantive major issue, except, I want to make sure that the council is comfortable with that. And subsection C is another one of those exemption provisions. Again, the only thing that is really subject to the referendum provisions are the final action of the council and the mayor at the end of the process. Section 10-11, I think there's some issues. Hold on. So I guess the question in this section is, it's again another voting standard question. And I have notes on the side which are hard to see. Let's see if I can move this over. I still am waiting from Henry on the issue of transfers. And I want to make sure that we have language in the charter, typo here, language in the charter on transfers and special appropriations. I want to make sure that is clearly laid out. I'm not comfortable right now. As you can see, that's a December 29th comment. So we've been waiting for that, and hopefully once he's in the next few weeks, I'm hoping that I'll be able to sit down with Henry and work on these transfer provisions. So that's what that issue is all about in terms of remaining concern. And again, these are voting standards on special appropriations.
So there's just one that isn't in conformity with all the rest that are 2/3 of the entire board.
Yeah, and these are, and this is because one of them has to do with with special appropriations. They both have to do with special appropriations, so that's not an unusual standard. I just want to make sure that they're comfortable with the entire membership standard,
Yeah.
because
right.
that's a greater burden, and I don't know whether they have problems historically getting this done. I imagine I would have heard about it if they did. Capital budget, we where's capital budget 10-12. See what comments I have here. The this is a note for definitions. I want to make sure department is a defined term and that we use it properly throughout the document, so it's not really a budget issue. I don't think there are any real outstanding issues on the capital budget, to my recollection. I'm looking at my notes as we're going through that. And then on the adoption of the budget, I think Henry had a question on this section. This is in 10-16B or C rather. Yeah, the CFO has recommended repeal of this provision. And that is because it's unusual to take things from the capital budget and move them to the operating budget. Because if they're in the capital budget, by virtue, by their nature, they're being paid for with bonds, the issuance of debt. And the real question is, do you want to take things that are being paid for over the period of 10 years or 20 years or 15 years or 30 years, whatever the debt term is, and then just simply move it into the budget to fill a gap in the budget? So I think I want to hear from Henry on that section on transfers to the operating budget. So that issue remains outstanding. None of these are earth-shattering, but they need to be resolved. And then again, the budget standard is affirmative vote of the majority of the members, in this case, present and voting. All right, I'm using the standards that are in the current charter, and there's two different standards. Do you see my point?
Yeah.
So that on the operating budget, it's of all members. On the capital, it's present and voting. And I just don't understand the distinction. So I want to get that worked out so we have a consistent standard. Now, if somebody has a policy rationale for a distinction, I'll leave it up to you and the council to figure out whether that makes sense. From my perspective and my experience, I don't see the distinction. I think the standard should be the same. They're budgets, and the capital budget has a lesser standard than the operating budget. And you'd think it would be the opposite, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
That if you're doing all of this stuff with debt, with regard to debt, that you probably have a higher standard for the capital versus the operating. So I want to make sure we get a consistent standard there. But then on termination or abandonment of capital budgets, it's not less than 2/3 of its entire membership. So again, I want to make sure that we have consistency on those standards. Again, Henry needs to get back to me on 10-21, which is how financing recommendations are acted upon. I didn't think this was a a complicated provision, but he obviously has something in mind. And I think out of respect, we should, hear what he has to say with regard to those financing recommendations. And this is the question of, do we go out to bond? When do we go out to the market? How long? What's the duration of the debt? Those kinds of questions, I'm assuming, are the issues he wants to address. And so I've been waiting and we've all been waiting for Henry to give us those thoughts. And that's all that it is, all that remains. And again, I have another note on the status of transfers. The borrowing provision is in good shape. This is the bond council drafted this section with me. And so we're in good shape there. So that's it. That's the current status of Article 10. The one thing I want to say, and I want to raise it since Carl raised it, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. One of the things that we're doing next door in Stamford is we are recommending in the charter, it hasn't been adopted yet, but we're discussing it. I just drafted the proposal the other day for them to require a pre-budget hearing. And so, the budget process, what do we say here? That most of these things start coming in October. Am I correct on that? The estimates, well, December's when they start getting formulated, but here it is, no longer October 15th. We know that they're starting to address the budget in the October timeframe, sometimes September, October. Your next door neighbor is looking at the possibility of a public hearing at that point, before the budget starts. And it could address capital issues as well as operating issues. And it gives the public an opportunity to speak out as the budget makers, as the executive branch. And it's really an executive branch hearing. It might be a BET hearing. I don't know how we could talk about that. But to give the public a bite at the apple at the very beginning of the process. And I didn't think, I thought in light of the, I was not planning on raising it, but in light of Carl's email that we received earlier today, I thought I would raise that as something that one of my communities is looking at right now.
I think it's worth discussing.
Right. So that's it for me. So it's your
Okay.
discussion now.
Right. I have a couple of notes and I can't find them exactly where they are here, but there's one place in the budget that says that it's a 2-year status for a capital item to be included, which seems to me to be out of whack with reality, that a capital item should have a lifespan of more than 2 years. Yeah,
Let's see if I can find it.
yeah. And I think it might be just where also then the limit.
It's not showing up. Are you sure it's 2?
It was 2, yeah.
She's talked about that almost since day one.
No, I know that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, but you're right. I mean, you can't get stuff done in 2 years.
No, what's the way I'm reading it is that it's the lifespan of the article or the item. And, capital to me means that it has a lifespan that should be bonded and not, and if it's shorter than that, it should be in the capital budget unless.
So you know where it is. We'll see it in the next chapter. It's in the
Okay.
article. It's in the capital budget items definition, which is in Article 1.
Okay.
And it doesn't use the word 2. It does use 2.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
It talks about that the item would be utilized in more than one fiscal year for other than ordinary operating expenses, and then has a usable expectancy
Yeah.
of at least 2 years. So there it is. It's not in this section. It's in the
Okay.
next section we're going to look at under capital budget items. And I think it's a good question, Patsy.
Uh-huh. And then also, then there was the limit of, which has gone up to 25,000 from where it was before, the capital budget items. Number 7. 227. 22C7. It's in that same paragraph.
Oh, it's the same section,
Capital- Yeah,
25,000, yep.
yeah,
All right, so we'll get to that in a minute.
okay.
That's the
All right,
next
so we'll
section we're gonna
wait-
discuss.
Wait to that. And then I think it's probably in this one too. The other is there on the 5-year projected budget. I think we need to identify whether it's binding or non-binding. It's not, it's just left out there, and I think it needs to be clarified. The proposal.
Yeah, they're generally, this, whoops, I just had it, I just lost it. Let me go back. 5-year, this one.
Yeah,
I think shall hold hearings on the proposed capital program for the ensuing 5 years. The 5 years is generally estimated because it's not set until you. approve.
exactly. And that
the
needs,
budget.
my point is that needs to be clarified.
All right,
It should be clear. Okay.
all right, so clarify, all right. So if we approve this tonight, let's make the caveat that council should make it clear that the 5-year capital budget is an estimated projected.
It's a projection, really,
Yeah. Yeah. All right,
but it's non-binding.
no. And anyhow, I mean, the truth of the matter is yeah, no, it's not, because it could change from year to year. You could see,
It's a planning tool.
it's a planning tool. That's all it is.
Yes.
Some communities have, in fact, one of your council members called me this week about whether we could do a 2-year budget the same way the state does. And my answer was, you really can't, but you can do a projection for the out year, if you want.
Operating, you're talking operating?
Operating on the operating side. Stamford has something like that, frankly. I don't know how they deal with it. And they were trying to move to a 2-year standard. And I told them, you really can't, because the budget is not complete without setting the mill rate. And you can only set a mill rate for 1 year. We have no authority to do a mill rate for 2 years. So we're different than the state. We're not a sovereign. And so we can't establish a 2-year operating budget. You could probably do a 2-year capital if you want, because it's all based on how much money there is, and you can always go out and bond for the multiple years of your capital. But how complicated that would be. But certainly I'll make sure that we put projection in here in 1014.
Okay. So do any of the commissioners have any comments on Article 10 before we move on? Any questions, additions? Strong opinions? Okay, I guess we're ready to move on to the next.
Well, did you want to vote on this tentatively to get
Yeah, I would.
at least
Well-
one
Well,
article approved?
I think the process tonight, I think we need to set a process of having public hearings before we finalize any of our discussion. We need to get the public's input. Or are we thinking in terms of making a decision and getting the responses? So.
Well, I'm suggesting a tentative approval that we're moving in the right direction. All of this
Or
subject,
work.
yeah, all of this is subject to public hearing, so that if you have public comment, let's say next week or next meeting or
Yeah.
3 meetings from now or 2 meetings from now, you can always make changes, and we can make changes up through the public hearing and after the official statutory public hearing.
Yeah.
So it's your call. I just thought it'd be nice to at least get something in the hopper, knowing that there's still open questions in this section. But
I would only say that I kind of lean toward approving what's on the screen and what we're talking about. and then public hearing, yes, but if we have something that we've approved, we've sort of got something that people can look at to get the gist of it and say yea or nay or make a suggestion. If we just go open-ended, my feeling is when I've been involved in those kind of things, we'll never finish. But that's just me.
Well, I wasn't looking at it the same way, Carl.
Okay.
I just think it's super important to have the public have an opportunity, and we phrase this is a tentative, or there's some kind of message out to the public that
Or this is
these
the
are
way
our
we're looking at it.
ideas,
Yeah.
pardon, and then we hear the public, and then we finalize our decision.
Okay,
Uh,
that's fine.
Any
All right.
any other commissioners have?
Yeah,
Yes,
I just,
Rick?
Steve, even though we're waiting for answers from Henry, can we tentatively approve it just to move it along and then put the pieces of Henry in later?
Yeah, I'll leave that up to the chair. I mean,
And
it would
Well,
not
it
just
would
be
be
Henry, it's-
subject to further discussion.
Because,
yeah, it's subject, it's
It's
subject to
kinda-
public response, it's subject to Henry's comments, et cetera. So,
It's
well,
more
what
like
I'm-
approving it based on what we've done. You know what I mean? Moving it along, but we're finished with it,
Mhm.
subject to the public taking a look at it.
Yeah, which I think all of this will be, so
Yeah.
I would be comfortable with moving it.
Yeah,
As is, we put a lot into this one and knowing that it's nowhere near final.
Yes.
Not nowhere near final, but it's not, final until the public obviously has.
Right. and it'll be the first thing that the public sees
Yeah,
that we've done. I mean.
which
so
is
I think
important given
which
the
is
timing
Right now, yeah, I think people are looking to see.
Which is why we started with the budget.
Yes.
Yeah.
Smart.
Absolutely.
did,
Okay.
was there any
May not be
further
going that
comment?
well on the other
Yes,
side. but
Steve?
Yeah.
Was there any further comment on the concept of a preliminary September, October public hearing, pre-budget preparations that I raised? Is that something you want?
I agree with that, Steve.
I think it's a great
I
idea.
think it's a working beginning for people that are gonna be looking at the budget, including the public, so it's no surprises, but I think that's a good idea.
All right,
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah.
Anybody else have? All those, I guess, in favor of that concept would be the easiest way. Is there anyone that is not in favor of suggesting that? I see no hands, so Steve, I think it was a good recommendation.
good, thank you. Well, I learned something next door. So it came in hand. That's the nice thing about doing multiple charters at one time. All right, so did you want to take just a preliminary consensus?
Yes,
on-
the consensus on it is a good way to put it.
All
So
right.
the motion on the floor would be to take approving this subject to changes, review by the CFO.
And the
I
public.
second,
And
I
And the
second
public,
it.
and the public,
And the
that,
public.
and that's,
I
yeah,
agree.
that's, it's
I
absolutely,
agree. I second it.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? It passes unanimously.
Mazel tov, mazel tov,
Yeah.
got something
That
done.
is a good move.
All right. Do you want me to move on to the next section?
Yes, please.
All right, let me get this off the screen and let me get the budget up on the screen if I can. Not the budget articles, one. I'll try to do a clean, I think this is the clean one. Do you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. So that worked nicely.
Can you make it a little bigger?
I will. I haven't, I'm just trying to get it set up here so I can see it. And I can't see it on my screen for some weird reason, but that's all right. I can see it. I can see it on my screen here, but not on. Okay, so if you may remember, we were doing and I hope everybody looked at this. We were trying, and I think this is something that Patsy wanted us to look at, is try to set a context for what we're doing. And I think this is a first run at it. It's not complete, but I'd ask all of you to take a look at it, because I think we also want to add into here some reference, this is where you need to give me the history on the consolidation of the entities and the taxing districts. So I don't know if there's there anybody on the commission who wants to take a look. This is not law. This is kind of your history. And so does anybody want to read, take a look? This is not a preamble, but it's really setting the context. I think Patsy wanted us to have something at the beginning of the charter that kind of sets the table. So everybody knows what this document is and how it works. And what it's missing is a little history on the consolidation and on the interplay between the taxing districts and the city. So is there anybody or is there somebody you can recommend that I talk to that might be able to help in formulating this?
Well, I think Tom Livingston would be the start.
All right, I'll talk to Tom.
Now, when you have taxing districts, your district is not capitalized. So are you talking about the first, second,
Yes,
third, and sixth taxing districts?
correct.
All right, so then it should be capitalized.
Well, yeah, this is just a note to ourselves, so I'm not worried
Okay,
about.
but well, I want to make sure we're talking about specific identities, and that I think is crucially important that it's included here. The history and the current status of
Yes.
those entities.
I just changed it.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
okay.
All right, I'll talk to Tom about this. Let me put a little note.
Because the sixth is different than the first, second, third, and.
Got you.
Yeah.
All right, I will talk to Tom. I'm talking to Tom tomorrow.
Okay.
I
About,
think there's, if you go down, if you push that down a little bit, there's
Yeah.
just a typo.
Yeah, there's an extra period there. Is that what
Or
you-
Sure.
no, it's where it says one of the things we also want to accomplish. Right?
I'm sorry.
Keep
Last
going.
Last paragraph of that.
Last
section.
paragraph, the last sentence.
Oh, one of the things, not
Yeah.
loan of the things. Thank you. Somebody read it. Nice,
No.
thank you. Always
Steve-
thrilled when people read these things.
Steve,
Good,
I
so
was just thinking, oh, I'm sorry, Steve.
that's
I was
okay.
Just thinking that, as far as the history and the opening up of the document and talking about it, I wrote one for the state blue book. Probably 2, maybe 3 years old right now. But it did, if I remember, I have to look at it again tomorrow, showing the history and the breakdown and everything.
Rick, if you can get that to me, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of it now that the copies just came to the offices. That's why I'm
Great.
thinking of it. But yeah, I think that's in there, a block that's been used by the state for their state blue book. So let me take a look at that.
And send that to the
yeah.
whole commission, please.
Yeah.
And while you've got this on the screen, the sentence that starts the revision does not and cannot forget. There's an extra or a couple of dots in there of our city and town.
Well, I did that because I did it. because
On
of-
purpose,
I did it on purpose, but that's okay.
okay.
It's not necessary.
Three-dot journalist.
Yeah. And town should be capitalized, but we'll,
Okay,
yeah.
Hey,
well,
Rick,
looks
I
like-
was going to suggest that you be one of the people that would speak up on this history that we were talking about. What do you think personally about reaching out to Hempstead and asking him as well?
Oh, I think that'd be an excellent idea. I mean, he pretty much has been the city historian for so long and for all the different councils and everything.
Right.
And I think
So-
that's good.
Rick, if you want to set something up,
Yeah.
for the three of us, I'd be happy to do that.
Absolutely.
because- Yeah, I think this is I've never done this in a charter, but I think because of the various layers that you have
Mhm.
here,
yeah.
Right.
I think Patsy's absolutely, has been absolutely right about this. And I think it'll be a very nice explanation. It doesn't need to get into the nitty gritty of history, but just enough so that people understand the context of the document.
He actually, I've done it also with him. We've gone out to the schools and given the history of Norwalk to the schools. And I know that he's done it for different organizations also. So I'll reach out for them and see if we can set something up.
That's great.
Uh,
All right, so let me start running through here. By the way, I did run this section by Brian Candela, the Deputy Corporation Counsel. So any comments he has are now incorporated in my latest draft of this section. After we deal with it tonight, I told him I would send this to him again to distribute it to the other members of the Corp Counsel's office to look at their particular areas of expertise, particularly in the sections that I am at the end of the document that I'm recommending that we repeal, that we take out of the document. So I want you to know that this is an iterative process, and I am juggling 10 different sections of the charter only, and I've got 1.5 to go to draft. So we're moving in a good direction, but I'm talking to a lot of different people to make sure that we end up with the best. We're doing a pretty radical change here on the body of the document. I want to make sure that all the people who have to live with it, particularly the lawyers who have to defend it, are perfectly okay with it. And they're very happy with the structure because I think it'll make their job much easier, frankly, to be able to defend the city. So again, there are no real questions in Article 1 where we go through, and again, if there's any typos that anybody's caught, I think this.
Well, you didn't correct the one that was brought up about one loan to one. It's got number 8 in it now.
Where's that?
The
Third
first,
paragraph.
yeah. I wasn't gonna mention it until you said,
No, go back, Steve.
it's in the first page. On the right someplace.
It's the last sentence on the first page.
It's the one you just corrected.
Yeah,
The alone. Oh, I screwed it up. I didn't
Yeah,
get anything
you
right.
made it worse.
Yeah, I put the word 1-8 and okay, done.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
All right, I'm trying to juggle a computer
Yes, I
and
know.
3 different screens. Okay, so if I let a mistake like that go through, I'll be really disappointed in the end, but we're not going to let that happen. So again, in Article 1, there really are no significant questions. There's no real policy decisions. It's really basically recodification of things that are in the charter. The only new part of this is 1-5, which is the general grant of powers. You don't have in your current charter the general grant of powers. And just to explain it one more time, the reason for this is these powers that we have, and one of the reasons we're eliminating, and you'll see that in the council section that we'll get to in a while, that I'm able to eliminate 50 items, 50 paragraphs of powers, is because all of those powers are in the general statutes. And as long as they're in the general and none of them have ever been taken out. That's the risk you run, is that they take a power out. But in my review, and I've talked to other lawyers who do the same thing I do, I've never seen them eliminate a power that a municipality has. And so this general grant says to the world that this is our charter, and the charter really narrows a focus of what the structure of the government looks like. But even if something is not mentioned in the charter, the mayor and the council, the council have the ability to act if it's in accordance with state law. And so, because again, we are still subject to the express grants of authority by the state. So the state law has something not mentioned in our charter, or not prohibited by our charter. The charter could say, we don't want a housing authority. We don't want this or that or the other thing, whatever it might be. It would be kind of a silly thing to put in a charter, but you could see, and I don't see many charters that say you can't do something. Most municipal governments want to do everything they can do. So you don't see caps and limitations in charters. But this is the general grant that says to everybody that don't tell me you can't do it because it's not in the charter. Because if it's in state law, you can do it. And that's what the general grant provision does. Which you
Maybe,
don't,
maybe, Steve, that could be articulated in the preamble.
all right?
And before you go on to the next page, I picked up that it says that the city may have a common seal. And I thought I had read previously that the city shall have a common seal, and we do have one, don't we?
Yes, we
Yeah,
do.
so that's 1-2 body politic and corporate. The last sentence.
All right.
Yeah,
Might as well fix it in real time. Let me just
Okay.
take a look at the footnote. Because that's the actual language. I didn't change it. And
yeah.
now
well,
I am, so
I don't
I'm
know
not-
where I saw it before, but I
Yeah, no,
remember.
it's somewhere
Yeah.
else in the document, but I'm just saying that the
Yeah.
language in that section was a
Yeah.
may, and we're changing it, so I'm giving you a sense of the method of my madness. So you now see that the footnote says it's not only a recodification, it is a modification,
Okay,
because the word changed from may to shall. So it's a little thing, but I want to show you that's how the annotations work, so that somebody could take a look and see what we did at some point.
and so I also saw several places that when we move from the fact that the town became a city, that we shouldn't be referencing ourselves as a town again. So under 1-5, general grant of powers, we have in the second line, town instead of city.
Yeah, that's because I took that from one of my towns. There you go. That's the new one. So
Right, so I have read this, Steve.
that is a real mistake. Thank you. Good. Good. Good
Okay,
catch. And I don't have to change the annotation because it's new. So that's why I didn't change the annotation in that one. All right. So then we go, are we okay with that? Article 1 then?
Mhm.
All right. So then we go to Article 2. The definitions will continue to be a work in progress. And, some of them are pretty basic. Remember, we created this term budgeted entity, so we now have that as kind of a definition that didn't exist before. Here's the capital budget items. Do we want to talk about those right now?
sure.
So one question you have, let me highlight it, is the 2-year provision.
Can I just ask a question before we get there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
City means the city. Would it be better? Why not the city of Norwalk? City means the city of Norwalk.
It should say that. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. That's a good one. It should have been there. Thank you.
Mhm.
Keep those cards and letters coming, kids. Thank you, though. So we have this section dealing with there were two issues that, it was the 2-year term. Is that's the issue you want to memorialize, Patsy?
No, it was, it's not here. I don't see it on this page, but
It's right on the screen.
Number 7.
oh, you guys moved
7.
on to another page. I'm still on C1, where you included the Board of Education. And I thought we had made a decision to further identify the Board of Education by saying, and the public school system, or am I incorrect in that assumption?
Well, but the public school system is not a board or commission. The Board of Education is.
But we did, in a couple of places, add that terminology, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, but
But this is
Not-
the definition.
this is the
Yeah,
definition
okay,
of a board or
okay.
commission. And we're making it clear that the Board of Education is a board under
Okay,
that
is
definition.
it, is a department,
Yeah, not a department, but a board.
well. Okay,
The
Thank
public schools are, yeah, because we're not calling it the Department of Education.
No,
we're calling it-
I misread it. That's
Yeah.
fine. I was skimming it. Thank you.
That's
But
okay.
the city considers the board a department head, right?
The board is a department, whatever you want to call it. You can call it the
Right.
public schools. It is a department of the city.
Okay, I just recall when they were talking about timelines for department heads to get things in and so on and so forth. The whole board is considered a department head.
Well, I don't know, if we have to figure that out.
Okay,
Yeah,
Board or NPS, I mean, it's separate
So,
entities, right? So it's
yeah,
not.
I mean, the-
NPS is a department, not the Board of Education.
yeah, the public schools is the department,
Yes.
is the
Right.
superintendent, the department head, probably. Um,
well,
the
they
superintendent,
answer to the Board of Education.
no, they do, but the fact of the matter is, that is a person, the Board of Ed is not coming to department head meetings.
Right.
I think the superintendent is probably coming
Yeah.
to those meetings. If the finance department is laying out new procedures for the budget.
Okay,
Now, the superintendent may not come, the superintendent's finance person may come. But the superintendent has to be recognized as the department head. And that department head is accountable not to the city council or the mayor, but to the Board of Ed,
Yeah.
but they're still a department head.
all right.
I'm, well, at some point, I'm gonna sit down with those
Henry.
people here in
Oh.
town. I'm sorry.
I thought you were back to the 2-year thing with Henry or,
I will, but before I got there, whoops, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, I did jump ahead. I jumped ahead. I'm sorry. So I have the 2-year issue identified.
am
talk
I
to him.
reading that correctly? Because to me, it says, you know, you can bond something that's only going to be usable for 2 years.
Well, it says at least 2 years, which is a very
Low.
low threshold, I would think. But let's see what Henry has to say. So it's not 2 years, it's at least 2 years. It's saying that it can't be a 1 year. If it's something that gets done in a year, you should put it in your operating budget. You shouldn't put it in your capital budget.
Right.
Is 2 years too short? Should it be at least 5 years? 5 years is the projected estimated capital program. Should it be at least something that long?
Yeah, that needs to be discussed.
No, I think it's a good catch. I don't know the answer,
Okay.
but it's a good catch. The next issue that's still up in the air is it's a term that I use in some cities. I want to figure out what the term I'm going to use throughout the document to describe elected officials. Some places it's called elected officials, sometimes it's called elective offices. I want to socialize it. I'm not here to impose a concept on anybody, but it means all the electeds, all the people who are elected. I want to make sure we have a common term for that. I've highlighted it because I don't have that term at this point. Here is, let's say here. Number 14, Patsy, this may go to your issue of projections.
Yeah. Right.
The
That's-
5-year, it's a proposed or a projected 5-year program.
I think projected is,
The right word.
yeah, rather than proposed. Or it could.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because that's actually the way we set up our budgets,
Yeah,
come up with a 5-year plan.
I'm going to put a note on the side
okay.
for Henry. CFO. Okay. All right, we'll make the change. If he has objection to it, we'll come back to it.
Okay.
I have the concept of final action. I don't know if we're going to use it in this charter. Once I'm done with the council section on ordinances and the budget, I very often use final action. It's helpful to the public to know this is the final action. Remember, I talked a few moments ago about your petition referendum, you can't have it until there's a final action. And if you do have it, the final action then becomes the referendum. But and so I want to see if that's a term we're going to use. I've noted it. I will talk to Corp Counsel and others to see whether it's a term we want to use in the document. The same is true. Are there any? Everybody look at the meeting notice section. Everybody comfortable with that? Okay.
I have a question on 18. The word affirmative vote there,
Yeah.
is it just the affirmative vote if there's a negative and the majority votes in the negative?
Well, we're going to use the term majority vote of the council
As an
as a term of art
affirmative?
as the affirmative vote.
Okay,
If they could be negative, it could be a negative majority, but it's not. But it's used in this document. It's used as your threshold, your bellwether for whether something passes or doesn't pass.
okay.
That's why it's defined that way. And remember where we use it, where we talk about I will probably substitute this term if they're comfortable with the majority vote standard that they have. This is the term you're going to see in the budget section.
Okay.
All right. I didn't yet put it there, but that's what you'll see. Then I have the notice provisions.
Can I ask, I have a question though.
Yeah,
Under the mayor, I thought last time we talked about the common council, president of the common council becoming the mayor or standing in for the mayor if something happens to the mayor.
yeah.
So would that be at the sole determined in the sole discretion of the mayor? Or is that something?
No, there's no discretion. The mayor has no discretion. If the mayor is disabled, unable to serve in office to the point where either on a temporary basis, there's an automatic ascension to the office of mayor. The mayor doesn't get to say, this person cannot do it. The mayor's chance to do that is to persuade the majority. Well, right now, we haven't made a change. Right now, there is no automatic
Okay,
succession.
Chain of command there, yeah.
We're going to talk about that probably later today. But this is just defines what the mayor is. And it also, for the public's purposes, if you look at the footnote, tells you why that definition is here. It's required. There's only, as I've told you, only two required provisions in a charter. This, that we have a mayor as a chief executive, and the other is that you have a common council as the legislative body. Everything else is, you don't really need anything else except you want to have a structure of your government. You should have a charter and do that stuff. So,
okay.
all right. And so the meeting provisions loosen things up. I may look at this a little more. I've been working on it for two of my other cities, and I'm refining the term. If I come up with something I think is really better, I'll throw it back at you before we finalize this section. But the concept here is to have one standard so that when there is a notice for a meeting or a hearing notice, that you all go back to subsection 21 of the definitions, and that's what you follow. You don't have to repeat it 20 times in the charter. Anytime hearing notice is mentioned, it will tell you. What it may say in a section, hearing notice of at least 5 days, hearing notice of at least 20 days.
Right.
That could be particular to the section, but what's in the hearing notice is only stated once in section 21.
That's going to be very helpful.
Yeah, I think it will be really helpful.
So
And
we
again-
shouldn't put a stated time of how far in advance a public notice should be of a particular public notice.
I don't think one size fits all, Carl, that's Carl speaking, I think.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't think there's a one size fits all. In zoning, you might have very particular standards that are mandated by the state. And there may be different standards that the legislative body wants to have by virtue of their rules. And so here we just establish where the notice has to be and where the notice has to go, and what the alternative ranges are. So I've taken out of most of the sections in the document required newspaper notice, unless somebody decides that they think there should be newspaper notice. And then we can keep it. But for the most part, the notice is a broader standard. It allows for website publication, city clerk publication in their office, and a range of other things. And it allows for expansion of the concept as new technologies come out. We don't want to be specific about what the technology is that you should use because they're changing. We wouldn't have known about certain things 10 years ago or 15 years ago that exist now. So,
Right.
But in some of the other sections, it mentions public notice at the public libraries, and I don't see that here.
that's because it's in the public notice section. So that you have to read those two sections together.
Okay,
All right.
There's like
thank
2
you.
or 3 things says where
Yep.
it should be posted, I
Yep.
think.
Yep. And again, I'm going to look at that section. I'm working on those two sections for another city as we speak. I didn't want to be until I want to see where we land in that city with their definition and have a comfort level that really works well. I'm refining it a lot more than this, making it shorter and more terse. I think it may work. And if I do think it works, I'll bring it back to you in the weeks to come. You'll see it again.
So here's a dumb question. Who's responsible for the postings?
Well, shouldn't it be I mean,
Well,
isn't it the clerk? Shouldn't
Is
the
that who
clerk,
that is, Rick? Is it the clerk?
I was just gonna say, there's
is it
different,
the city clerk or is it the town clerk? That's the
town
question.
clerk usually does see, it depends on where it's coming from. If it comes from the council, it's the city clerk, but then there's a lot of different notices like for planning and zoning or some of the subcommittees and everything, or planning and zoning, public hearings and things are posted by myself, by a town.
Well,
clerk.
should we say city or town, city
City
or
or
town
town
clerk as the case may be?
Yeah.
And/or.
Yeah, I think that's important to put that in there.
Yeah, because I don't think it's defined right now.
I think it's
Or,
because there's some things I won't ever see. But there are things that I know that the city clerk doesn't see also because they come directly to us as far as public hearing and public notices.
And I think the place where, because remember, it says it includes posting all meetings with the city and our town clerk. So the city or town clerk isn't in charge of every board or commission. There may be commissions that they're assigned to, and they would then know that
Right.
something needs to be noticed.
Right.
But it's up to a board or commission, because the city clerk and town clerk aren't sitting with every board or commission in town. It's up to them or the staff people to notify the city and town or town clerk
Right.
of the need to post. That's
Well,
why it's, yeah.
Right, I actually get things from the taxing districts that I also post too.
all right.
So I mean, it just depends on where they've been taught over the years to send it, to get it posted. I mean, we have a board right outside our office that we posted on there anyway.
Yeah, the other thing I want to make a note on here, hold on a second. I'm probably going to do a definition. I actually wrote this for a town the other day, and I think it's actually really useful. I want to come up with a definition. Here's my letter 8 again. Wait, you see this. I want to come up with a definition of what a public hearing is. I think that goes to the issue that again Carl raised
Yeah,
about how much public participation is there and what does a public hearing really mean? And I'll share the information I'm developing in one of my other cities. I think it's actually very, very helpful. It's amazing how much you learn every time I do one of these charters. You learn something new and take new approaches to things. This is
I
like,
think that's also very important for Norwalk.
no, absolutely. That's why,
that
that's
is,
why,
You know,
yeah.
it is often discussed, the confusion.
yeah, no, so I think it's the more you can define these things, the better off we are in that regard. So I'll bring that in. 2 sections still up in the air. This goes to, remember I talked about the elected officials, then there's the broader term, public official or official, which includes everybody. And so again, I want to get a consensus on what the term should be so that I can then use it throughout the entire document. That's why it's still in green. I don't know, I've got as we're working on the city council section, I don't know whether they use the term orders in the legislative body. In some communities they do, some communities they don't. I think it's good to define it. So when a member of the public sees that the the Common Council has ordered something, that they know what that means. And so, and the concept of a motion as well. Sometimes people just propose a motion. Well, what is that? Is it a resolution? It's not an ordinance necessarily. You move an ordinance, but sometimes legislative bodies do something as broad as adopting a motion, whatever that may be. I'm not a big fan of that concept, but I don't know whether you use it or don't use it. That's something I want to find out as we go through this process.
They use resolution.
Yeah, you'll see resolutions defined
Yeah.
down here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
still there.
that's more commonly used here.
That's the more common term. I agree.
Mhm.
And here's public notice. And again, I'll be looking at this section again. Yep. Use that again. It gives, again, public notice, you're allowed to be more stringent than the state. You can't be less stringent than the state. So you need to abide by FOIA, Freedom of Information, minimally. But if you want to have a stronger standard than FOIA, you can do that.
Steve,
Yes.
it's Benita, number 24, ordinances or ordinances of the city.
Yep.
I thought that the ordinances come from the Common Council.
Mhm.
Could that be put in there?
Well, you'll see it in the Common Council section. This is just a definition of the ordinances.
Okay,
But you'll see in the section on Common Council that the process for adopting an ordinance is through the city council, is through the Common Council,
all right.
all right? And because, the ordinances are enacted through the legislative body, but the mayor plays a role too. The mayor has to sign it into law, veto it, or ignore it, and let it go into law. So the mayor plays a role. It's an executive legislative function, but it's defined further. This simply says what they are. And it's a good definition. I've used it in a lot of places, and it's really a very sound definition of the word ordinances so people can understand. And these are regulations, which are usually adopted by departments or boards or commissions. That's different than an ordinance. It's a lesser standard of law, but it's still a standard of law. And presumably the Corporation Council works with a department if they're adopting regulations. I don't know if you have a formal regulatory process, but it is a commonly used term in local government. And so I thought that it would be important to use it more readily, because there's a Supreme Court case that I've actually, as a Corporation Counsel, won a major a case against a vendor that was trying to rip us off, let's say. I won't name names, but it was because basically people who do business with municipalities are charged with the responsibility of knowing what the law of the municipality is. They can't plead ignorance. They can't say, oh, when I signed that contract, I didn't know that there was a charter provision or an ordinance or a regulation. And so I think it's important to really define all the policies of the city that are less than an ordinance and try to adopt a regulatory standard. But again, when a board or commission is adopting a regulation, it better get legal advice, because it becomes part of the law of the community. It's a lesser standard. It's an interpretation. As an ordinance is an interpretation of the charter, a regulation is an interpretation of an ordinance. That's the way to understand it. And then there's the term resolution. I won't get, so that's defined as well. So most of these definitions are in pretty good shape.
You moved past 28. I had a question.
Resolution, yeah.
Yeah, no, special acts or special laws.
All right, now 29.
Oh.
Yep.
28, yeah, General Assembly pertinent to the city?
Yep.
Is that the Common Council?
No. Special laws and special acts are
from the state.
You have your general statutes, right? And the general
Okay.
statutes are adopted by the General Assembly, signed by the governor, et cetera.
Okay,
Special laws are passed by the General Assembly, signed by the governor, but pertinent to the city. You
okay,
have
so should we
provisions,
add the reference of the state so it's clear? Special acts of the.
General Assembly of the State of Connecticut.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
and to the city of Norwalk, or,
That's for special. act.
City is
Yeah.
defined, but I think maybe General Assembly of the state.
yeah,
Of the states, and states a
Yeah.
defined term just below
Yeah.
that.
yeah,
Yeah. All right, good.
okay.
State constitution, town clerk, vacancy, and that's it. So that's it. That's where that's the structure, the definitions thus far. They're in good shape. There's still a few that have to be worked on, but they're in pretty decent shape. Now, let me just take a look. I had a couple of comments from members of the Board of Ethics. So there are two comments that came in here. I use the term public policy developed by officials affect every citizen of the city. Board member Geraldo Williams recommended resident of the city. Thought resident covers more than that there are non-citizen residents of the
Right.
community, and that the concept of a resident is a broader term. And I didn't want to make the change. It was Corp Counsel asked me to send this out to the Ethics Board. And this is the comment I got. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts are on that.
I think it's citizen.
Immigrant, basically, he's from Panama. Yeah,
I think residency is too broad a
It-
term,
it's to what?
too broad. I think it's citizens. I mean, a citizen is a citizen and they pay taxes, they live here, they do this, whatever. Residents, not necessarily maybe.
Well, there's some,
Resident lives here.
they live
I
here,
mean, they reside.
yeah,
They
they
vote
they
here.
reside here, they're residents.
Yeah,
yeah, they,
they are written.
yeah, they have to be included.
Say that again about residents. I didn't hear who said that.
I mean, resident by definition lives here. I don't know if it matters that if they pay taxes, you know.
I don't know that that's absolutely true. I haven't looked it up, but I don't know that that's absolutely true.
I don't think the word citizen, there are a lot of people who live here who are not citizens.
Point taken.
And what's your problem with that, Carl?
Well, I just think that, if we're doing this for the city, that if you're a citizen, that gives you more statute than being a resident.
But if
But
you're,
For
all right,
public trust,
You're living here, you're a resident, and you're using all the
Services.
services of the city. Why wouldn't you be included?
you could also be a taxpayer, you could own property in the city and not be a citizen. A citizen is the wrong word. Any other comments? Steve,
Yeah, I
have you run
respectfully
into this
disagree with you.
before?
no,
I
I,
just, let it be, let it be in the minutes or on the record or whatever. I respectfully disagree with it.
the concept of residency is not a unknown concept. For example, fair rent commissions, which are established by local government mandated by the state, provide rights for residents of buildings. And the resident may be a citizen, may be an elector, may not be an elector, but is paying rent in a building and is entitled to the benefit of law in the state of Connecticut and in the city of Norwalk for a fair rent commission, just as one example. So I was not surprised by the comment that residency is a broader term and probably more applicable to now. There's certain places where elector is a requirement. You need to be an elector to run for office, to hold a board of commission position. Although I will tell you, I can't remember which one of my other cities, New Haven or Stamford, there is an effort now to look at the possibility of putting non-electors on boards or commissions. I'm just researching that issue, but that's different than a broader statement that policy that's developed by the municipality that affects every person who lives in the city. If you don't want to use the word resident, but I think that's the concept of resident, is any person who lives in the city, is the concept of residency.
I also think that basically looking at the sentence, it's public policy developed by officials affect every person of the
Who live-
city, and it must be
person-
based on an honest and fair. So,
So you
know,
might say person who lives in the city affects every person who lives in
or
the city.
resident. I
Or
mean,
resident. Yeah, it's a cleaner way to say it, that's all.
I would go along with the person, using person. That covers both citizens and residents. A person is one or the other or both.
Well, a person could be a passer through though, right? Whereas I think you're trying to.
Say that.
trying to-
Well, I think if you're a passer through in any town, city, municipality, you know, whether you're a citizen or a resident or whatever you want to call it, that town. You know, if you're a person in there, you're subject to obey the rules and regulations of that geographical area that you're in at the time.
Right, but this is, I mean, but if you were a passer through in the city of Stamford and you live in Norwalk, you're not subject to their rules of ethics governing their elected and appointed officials though, right? I mean, is that what?
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, what is it? It's 90 days or whatever to be able to establish residency anywhere or something like that? In a lot of places?
I think in this context, citizen and resident can be used interchangeably. I don't have a
Yeah.
huge problem if it's still citizen because it's
no.
referring to somebody who's, I mean, I think it's a
I have a big problem with that.
resident.
Yes.
I prefer resident too. I just think that basically what they're trying to, I mean, it's not about that as much as it is that they're saying that it's the trust of public officials. And the trust of public officials should be for every resident.
Exactly.
I have
You
no,
say every resident or citizen.
I think it's the
It's
same word.
not, I
Yeah.
don't think
It's
it's the
in this
same
context.
word at all. A citizen is
Citizen Kane.
not an immigrant here.
Well, I don't think
It's-
citizens being used in this context.
But it can
be
of a
applied that.
Legal citizen of the United States.
Right, I don't think
Yes,
it
You can
needs
be a
that.
citizen of a city. I think it's
Okay,
like a synonym in this,
Yeah.
or
okay,
inhabitant or
But
resident.
it sets up that issue, which is a sensitive one
Right.
currently in our
Originally, when
environment.
this was there,
Written,
it wasn't such an impact
Impact.
word.
but it
Very
is
true.
now.
Very,
And so if we're going to avoid the impact word,
I have no issue with being resident. That's fine.
All right,
Um,
do we want to vote on that? Okay. All those in favor of changing the word citizen to resident?
I,
Aye,
I,
Hey,
and I'm an aye, so any nays? And Carl?
I need,
Okay, and is Mr. Witherspoon with us or
I
not?
said
Yes, he
I.
is.
yeah,
Yes,
he's-
it is.
Okay. Thank you. So the ayes have it. All right,
I saw citizen shows up a few paragraphs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw that
And
too.
I thought that using confidence of the people of Norwalk worked well there,
Yeah,
because resident doesn't work quite as well.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
All right.
People.
All right, good. So the other
Mhm.
issue that I think it was,
Why is the question on the word assure?
well, again, Mr. Geraldo brought that up. I personally, I always thought there was a distinction between the two terms. When I looked it up, I saw that assure means insure and insure means assure.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that it can be used in a distinctive way, but I don't have any opinion on this at all. It's, you guys can take your grammar books out and figure that one out.
Okay,
just before we move on, if you look up the definition of a resident and the definition of a citizen, it really falls probably more in favor of you who want resident, because resident by definition is a permanent member of a town or a community where they live.
Okay,
Not necessarily.
Whatever
the
that,
same thing
whatever
for
that
citizens.
means, yeah.
but that's what we're talking about though, right?
No, I'm saying it weighs more heavily for the word resident than it does citizen.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
So are
resident
you
in this
changing your
context
vote?
Makes more sense.
Are you
I
cha-
never changed my vote.
Oh, okay. All right, let's move on.
All right,
Okay,
Thanks for
right,
looking
so,
out for us.
those are the only,
Good, Carl.
those are the only issues that came up in the context of the standards of conduct. It was again reviewed by the Corp Council.
I just had a correction, I think, when you say the public officials is capitalized, but employees is not.
Because
And-
public officials will be a defined term. I wasn't
Yeah.
making employees.
A
A defined
defined
term.
term,
Yeah,
so
And-
that's
and-
intentional.
yeah, yeah. And again, it depends. I've got to figure out what the final term is going to be, whether it's public officials. I remember that's one of those, I'm still juggling those terms, but it will be a defined term, whatever it is. Will be
Okay, but
defined.
they have the same weight here, that the same responsibility. The officials and the employees have to behave in the same standard, to the same standard. So that's why I thought is possibly the word employee should be capitalized.
But it's, all right. I don't know.
It's just a thought, so if.
I'll leave that to the grammarians.
Okay,
Well, yeah, let's let me make a note on that. Hold on. I don't want to forget it. Maybe we need to define it.
well, we want our employees to recognize this standard of behavior ethics.
Maybe I'll define an employee. I'll talk to our labor
Yeah.
people and see if we have a broad definition of what an employee is in the city. Okay, I think that's the way I'll resolve it.
Mhm, okay.
All right. Because then it's a defined term, so we don't have to argue over it. So what's my question here? Again, I do have a question for you. This is kind of substantive rules of order and civility. It's another one of these voting standards. So where is it? Oh, parliamentary authority. I had a note here, discuss Masons or Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody told me that they use Masons, and then somebody else brought up the issue that they use Roberts. Does anybody know?
I was told Roberts, but
I was told Masons,
Yeah,
there you go.
By whom?
a councilman.
that's the count. Yeah, and this talks about the council.
Well, wouldn't the corporation council be able to
They
tell?
didn't know. They didn't know.
I believe it's Robert.
Yeah, I mean, to Tyler's point, it was a councilman that told me that we use Roberts.
I believe it's Roberts also.
How do we verify it?
Can you ask Tom?
Can I ask the town clerk to verify that for me?
Yeah, we can find out.
Since he's kind of an official guy?
Yeah.
All right, thank
He
you.
actually, since Jordan oversees the council, he can help me out with it tomorrow.
Okay,
Good.
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no,
I believe it's
I
Robert.
want to get that. I don't want to get that wrong in the charter.
Oh, gosh, no,
Right.
please.
So then I had, and I took this from a municipality where there was a lot of paranoia about it's a split jurisdiction where the D's sometimes control, the R's sometimes control. And they voted for they wanted to have a 2/3 standard because everybody was paranoid about the other party.
Mhm.
And that's a very high standard to adopt rules of any board or commission or body, especially if it is political. And the other reason for the 2/3 standard is there was some paranoia that, and I don't see these provisions this way, but I wanted to raise it for you just to be honest with you, is can we use these rules on civil and orderly behavior in a way to stifle debate? And I came up with a 2/3 standard as being a way of assuring that you need to have people from both parties supporting it to a substantial measure in order to reach a 2/3 standard, unless your community I mean, the Norwalk Council is fairly dominated by one party, like the New Haven Board of Alders is, and I think the Stamford Board of Reps is as well. But on most boards and commissions, you have to follow minority party representation. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean Ds and Rs. It means a majority party and the rest of the folks could be unaffiliated, could be the minority party, could be a second minority party. Does everybody feel comfortable with the 2/3 standard for adoption of rules?
I think it takes away the political part of it.
All right. That was the concept behind it. I just wanted to make sure
Really do.
Well,
Takes
yeah.
away.
I support
I
it.
think that's fine.
everybody's okay with that.
Raise it. Okay,
Yes.
Yeah,
all right, you have that approved.
Good. Let me get the green off of it and take the note away. Oh, I like this. Yeah,
Okay.
that's good. All right, good.
But I just want to point out that also in 2-4, you have the city officials and the employees, and, you know, again, they're the same standard, but employees is not.
No,
defined.
we're
So,
gonna, as I said, I'll come up with a
Yeah.
defined term for employees. and we'll
So,
fix
but
that.
then it's got to be changed all the way down.
It'll be changed all the way through. I'll do a search and destroy mission.
Okay,
All right. Search and replace, I'm sorry.
okay.
So that's kind of it on that. Open meetings, there's no other changes since the first document went through. Now this, and I think this is where Benita had some questions. Am I correct, Benita?
where is that?
We're getting to 3-1 with this powers of the council.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't change anything here, because I'm not sure. I think some of this may be true, but it's statutory. So I wasn't sure this was needed. Oh, this is for the town elections, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is not the city. I changed it to city. I think this is for the town elections, and we really, the way we're setting it up now is it's just going to be the city election. So even something like the town clerk that is a historic town official is you'll see is in the municipal election, the city municipal election. So I don't think this section is pertinent. I'll talk to the registrars about this. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think.
But I had a, you know. All right.
Oh,
I'll
you're
talk
gonna
to-
check on that. But
Yeah, I'll
that-
talk to the registrars, but I think
General,
that's,
in this section, it speaks to appointed boards and commissions. But we don't have that trailing term of agencies and, you know, everybody else that runs the
because
city.
it's defined, we defined it.
Yeah,
Those are included in
okay,
departments.
okay, thank you.
And here's another thing I would change that Benita might have pointed this out. Do you mind if I call you Benita?
No, I don't mind.
Okay. The word act, it's a charter, and that's a holdover. Going back to the special act, that's a holdover from your special act. But I didn't make any of those changes, and I didn't change the word wards because I'm thinking this section is going to come out. So that's why I didn't spend any time cleaning it up. Okay, what else? So let me see where the next change. Okay, so this takes us to the elected public officials. And I think I'm moving in the direction of, you know, but again, we may call it elective officials. We have to figure out what the term is, but this is where I address the issue where everybody is included in the current charter. It's broken down between town officials and city officials. I'm putting everybody into the same category as the elected public officials because everything is done in the municipal election cycle. So that's why I think that other section goes away. So that, but I do have substantive, this is where we have a substantive discussion to think about. These positions. because I don't think we have come to any conclusions on it. The treasurer, the city sheriff, the selectmen, and the constables. Now, have we concluded that we want to continue to have an elected treasurer?
Rick, is that a functioning position?
You know, these have been discussed for years and years and years. Treasurer, I know because we have the finance department that basically handles all of the things involved in that. City sheriff, we have a police department. I don't think we need a sheriff at this point. Selectmen, it's one of those things that I know what they do, but I don't know what they do.
This is
It's
what
a
they have
regular-
the power to look up,
They
voter rolls,
they oversee an approval of the voter rolls,
which is already being done.
which is
Oh,
done by the state, and by us, and by everybody there. Now, the constables, that's a service that is used by the city by the tax department, by different, the law department. And different
Probate
Is
services.
that serving notice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are service notices. So I do believe those are,
They still serve a function.
and they do serve a function, and they are working.
Right.
So-
Are these, are,
What is it that the city sheriff does do? I mean, didn't we have one on the ballot?
We have a,
Oh, yeah.
city- all these are on the ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All these show up on the ballot, but because we've, we have the government is set up in the way the city's set up. There's no need for a city treasurer or a city sheriff, or the selectmen's because of the systems that are being used now. These are just, they seem like they're carryovers from the charter when the city and when the Norwalks came together, and these look like obviously positions that were, well, what are we going to do with Bob? Well, Bob's always been the sheriff. And I think kind of like now Bob is, Bob is long gone, but we still fill the position. But that's just my opinion as the town clerk. The other thing, Steve, on number 4 in the town clerk, it might be better to put it, because the way we are listed with the state, you could put in there, ex officio register of vital statistics. That way you won't have to have birth, marriage, and death. Because there's a few other things that come under that too. So if you change that to registrar of vital statistics.
And under nominations and elections, there might be a couple other places, the word warning instead of notice. Are we changing that to notice? Or are we flashing warning, notice, warning?
I haven't, I have not, that was not on my radar.
Well, that is actually something that is given to us by the Secretary of State.
That word?
That we have.
What
to-
terminology do they use?
Right, warning,
Okay,
via the public
Yeah.
notices say warning.
so there are some ancient terms that are still used in the state
Yes,
that
absolutely,
we can't get away from.
right.
Can we, would we be allowed to slash notice? Or is that,
Well, we
Uh,
still need to use the forms that the state.
no, I know, but.
Where's
so
the term
a person
used?
reading this knows what warning means, that
Yeah, that's fine.
because that's our intent, is to make this document as usable
Right.
as.
Well, I
possible.
have it here, warning or notice in one place.
Yeah, well,
fixed
under
in one
B,
place,
nomination and election.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah, but it's not
bold.
here because this is the section we're gonna get rid of. That's why I didn't change it.
Right.
Oh, okay,
Right.
I'll put it in just in case we don't change it,
yeah.
just as a
okay.
holder. But that's why it wasn't done. I thought I had done that.
I do warn everybody, but I
Okay,
can't get them all.
okay, so where are we now, Steve?
Well, give me a break here. Trying to-
Do we need to make a decision on those elected positions?
Well,
Well,
I think it would be useful that we have them come to a meeting, whomever they are, if they're out there. And-
Well,
that's going
Let
to
me,
be a-
let me raise the
public
sensitive
know-
question. Will any of these pose political problems.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's why I'm suggesting
Yeah.
that be, a special warning notice to these people that we're discussing it. And we ask for their wisdom, like, like the Board of Education and the CFO and the rest.
So,
To answer your question, Steve, from my point of view, the only people, when you ask people that run for selectmen, what do? They don't know. And so I've said, well, then why are you running for that office? Well, because, I like to keep an elective office, like, okay. And constable seems to be rather competitive, a position that people, want to hold near and dear to themselves, although I don't, in this day and age, I don't know, I don't want to be serving legal papers to anybody. But
Carl,
I don't-
what does the city sheriff do? Nobody's answered my question. What-
They
Nobody's
have
running.
no,
No.
I don't think anything.
in time of distress, they actually become a public servant, almost like similar to what the constables do too. They really don't have a position at all. They really.
Where's the
don't.
sheriff's office in town?
Bobby Burgess's house.
Okay.
Anyway, I think,
He's the city
yeah.
sheriff.
my thought that they need to be whomever they are, whatever they do, we need to get more clarification and input from them.
should we invite them to the next meeting?
Yes,
In 2016, they tried to get rid of
Yes,
those offices,
and they didn't go,
city sheriff and the selectmen, and failed.
right.
yes.
And Michael, was there a big tumult big to-do about those positions, or was it another issue?
No,
That
It was-
rode the wave of the town clerk and mayor 4-year term. It just, anything that was brought up about any public.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
my question, Michael. Was it about those particular, or was it the whole
No.
document
No.
went
It was
down?
a whole pocket of stuff, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Those- Yeah.
So I think that Patsy has it right. Let's do our due diligence,
And then
invite
Invite
them to
them.
come before the body and explain what they do. And then you could discuss it after.
if it
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to do
political,
that.
Tyler brought it up.
Yeah. Is Jordan in the room?
Yes,
Yes.
Hey, Jordan, can you make a note to maybe get an invite out from Patsy as chair? And you decide whether you want to do it the next meeting or the meeting after that. I'll leave it to the two of you.
Well,
But let's get them invited.
Are we inviting all 7 constables?
Well, I think I doubt all
I
7
think
will show
you
up. but
have to.
I think you have to.
You have
I think
to.
if you
Yeah.
invite one, you gotta invite all of
Right. If you need a list, Jordan, I have all of them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I do have them.
You know, what you could do, Patsy, if you want to give the constables or even the selectmen the option to have one person represent them,
Yeah.
they all don't have to come, but if
They
Yeah.
don't, none of them have to come, but they should be invited.
they should be invited, and you could say that if you want to send one of the members as a representative of the entire
They're
group.
not a group.
Yeah.
They're not a group.
I
They're
don't think
individuals.
they-
They don't function as a group.
All right, then invite them. If they don't show up, that'll be interesting too.
Yep.
Now, a
Would
lot
you
of
accept-
communities,
Would you accept a written definition from them if they said they can't make it, but here's what I do?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. of
why
course.
not?
Okay.
why not?
We just
Yeah,
want
it's-
to hear from those people.
Yeah, I
whether
think it's important to
you're-
establish on the record, let them establish in a non-adversarial way, establish what the rationale for keeping the positions are. I mean, that's all.
Right, right.
Yeah, we did
Also,
speak.
who supervises these folks? I mean, is there
Nobody.
anybody
Nobody.
that supervises
Well,
them?
the treasurer,
A
the
department
city
head?
sheriff, the treasurer, city sheriff, and the selectmen come under the mayor's office because that's the way they're elected. The constables, they basically are subcontractors for themselves.
Yeah, the free
Yeah.
agents.
They contact the attorneys, they contact the different departments and everything, so.
And
there
they
really isn't
make an
any-
income from that position.
If you work hard, you can make a good income as a constable.
You can only serve within the city, though. It's not like a marshal.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Only serve
Or-
within the city.
Or serve as an indifferent person if it's just a legal
Yeah.
document, not containing money.
Yeah, yeah, we had in Fairfield, they were trying to get rid of them, and there was a lot of pushback from the constables.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You will get it here too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
all right. I just wanted to raise it. I'll leave it in yellow.
I guess one other question I would have about it is if you get rid of them, who takes over their roles? Who takes over their positions in terms of,
The attorneys would probably have to go to marshals.
Yes, state marshals. They would
Or
have
the
to go to state
constables.
marshal.
Yeah, there's
For the
state
constable.
marshals who can do that.
The
job.
other ones, city sheriff, or the other one, I believe that the treasurer would be handled within the city by its finance department. City sheriff would be the police department. Selectman would be the state election enforcement or the registrar of voters, or, who's ever handling the voter registrations at the time.
Middletown 2 years ago got rid of their treasurer position. And there was a little pushback from the elected treasurer, but didn't really impact the election in the end because the treasurer really was a sinecure. The treasurer would come in 3 or 4 times a year to sign something. I mean,
Right, and I believe that's the same thing
yeah.
here, probably with bonds or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I'm not positive. But
yeah.
I don't
And
believe so.
I'm not sure what the city sheriff does in the modern world.
Rides a horse through town.
Okay.
It depends on what part of the
Um,
country you
So
live in.
under, in this section, under C, other districts. So again, capitalizing the districts is important, I believe, so that people understand we're talking about the taxing districts. The first and second, third and sixth.
Where's this?
where are we?
We
Three,
are,
four. Section 3-4.
well, I turned the page. So
3-4.
3-4C, 3-4C. Oh, I skipped a
We
page.
haven't got to.
We
okay,
done with
good.
terms of office and everything?
We haven't
now?
dealt with terms off.
Yeah, we had the terms of office.
What
All
did
right,
I
in
do?
terms of officers, well, are we, Patsy, on term of office? I think you want to
Yeah, I
hold
think
off on
I
that.
skipped a page. What? I'm sorry.
You want to hold off on term of office
Sure.
right now?
No, I just turned too many pages.
Okay. All right, so we will send out an invite to the 4 officers in
Yeah.
C. And so now we're at the term of office section. You had a seminar 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
I
Didn't we
don't
take a
know.
vote on this?
Patsy, I don't know what you want to do.
No, I don't want to take a vote on this tonight. I want to
Think-
do the whole package.
Patsy was talking about having a public, an
Hearing,
opportunity for
yeah,
public hearing before you acted on this one.
yes, I think that's.
No, but I
very
mean,
important.
last week I guess we just talked about who we preferred for too.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did.
or
We,
2 weeks
and,
ago.
yes,
So the register of voters will be 4 as well?
pardon?
The register of voters will be changed from 2 to 4?
No,
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 we didn't really jump.
we
into
didn't-
this.
We have.
no, we talked mostly about the mayor's position.
On the council.
And we talked
council.
about changing that from 2 to 4. We discussed the wisdoms of changing the city council to 2 to 4, or a combination of at large at one time with the mayor and the others on the off election year, but we didn't come to any conclusion on those. But this is an issue that the public needs to, participate in. This is one of the big issues, so. I think having a hearing on this would be, and a discussion with the public is important for us to
So you
do.
should decide when you want to do that.
Right.
Yes. All right.
The other
let's-
issue, I'm sorry.
Let's decide at the end of the meeting when we
Right.
see what else we have on the, potential agenda and fit it
Yeah.
in.
The other issue in this section is the term of office starts 2 weeks after the November election. It
Mhm.
has been raised. I'm trying to remember where it came from,
I saw it where it said January.
where somebody wanted to move it to January to have, it's a big city. And a 2-week transition is a very difficult thing. It's probably the shortest transition of a larger city in the state. So, I don't know if you want me to get you some comparative data. on what
I
other
think that
cities
would be
do?
helpful, because we, as I recall, it used to be January. Years back, decades back. So that would be helpful.
All right, I'll get some comparative data for you on that.
Okay.
Let me just put it in here too. Get nervous when I'm doing this in front of people. Sorry. I'm okay. I'll be all right. Council districts, 3-4. This is where Patsy. So we have the 5 districts. This is where I bring up
Okay.
a concept that's never been in your charter before, reapportionment, but I did it in a very gentle way. And the concept is that for the 2025 election, you should have new council districts that are picked, that are done in accordance with law. And so Patsy raised a question about B or C? C. See other districts. What was the issue here? You wanted to capitalize something?
No, where are we now? All
In
right.
C.
Just starting. 3-4.
Right, council, okay.
What are district commissioners, by the way?
They are the taxing district commissioners. They run
Okay.
the taxing districts. That's why that's why it's important. And their elections are on the same years as the mayoral elections, the local election.
Is this the same as a BET or not the same?
No,
No,
Okay.
BT's
They're
not,
elected.
BT's not elected.
These are elected,
These are elected officials, okay. Yeah, BET's appointed, right?
right?
yes.
Supposed to be half and half.
See, it's C that I find very confusing here. Is that where you are?
Yeah, that's where I am. I'm
Okay,
making
okay.
changes.
Yeah. So I don't know if we articulate the numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 6.
Well, no, I'm gonna make the reference to the article section, the article that the taxing district sends. That's where it is.
Okay,
Again, I'm trying to divorce the
Yeah.
taxing district from the
I
body.
know, but
Yeah,
this
but I'm gonna
confuses
have-
it here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a reference to the article. Good catch. Okay, just in case I forget, I want to keep all that stuff there. And then we have the issue of are you comfortable with what? Are you comfortable with these provisions? Okay, yeah, these are the vacancy provisions that are in
Yeah,
the current charter, I think.
okay, so the first one, A.
Yeah, yeah,
Being called to order by the town clerk, is that right? Or is it the city clerk?
Council.
what are we talking, what section are we in?
A, second to the last sentence.
Town clerk.
Okay,
Town clerk. Okay. All right, now here's the big issue. Do we want to formally deal with the issue of succession and make the president of the council the succeeding mayor?
I think there's nothing there now, right?
Yeah, I think we
I
should.
think you have to.
Yeah, we should address it.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so you're okay with that? So we'll do president?
Yeah.
Yes.
Council President.
Now, a couple of people have talked to me about this part here and that currently the council changes the presidency every year. I don't believe there's any, it's by agreement, I guess. I don't think there's any change that was made to have that happen. Originally, years back, it wasn't. So we need to understand that. That's how it's been done the last probably 10 years or so,
Right, longer than that.
huh? Longer?
Yeah.
Do you have any history on it?
Yeah, I was council president a couple times.
I was
in a couple
too.
Years.
Yeah,
Well, it goes back quite. a
yeah.
bit.
So I don't know when it got changed.
So is that part of council rules?
I don't know. We need to, we
It's
need
not
to
in the charter.
learn that. So maybe Corporation Council can educate us to that.
Yeah, I think it's more of a political, I've talked
Yeah.
to several council members about it, and it's more of a political issue.
Yes,
Yeah, I think it is too, but I'm not sure. I think we need to know whether it is or it isn't.
All right.
And the other part here is that if elected by the council, there's no requirement that the mayor would have to be from the same party as the mayor that vacates. Every other position that I found, the Board of Education and the council, it references that they have to be replaced by someone from their own constituency and party.
I've never
The
seen,
mayor, and the mayor is not, that's not
I,
defined.
well, these are constitutional officers, and so it's possible that you could have a different party controlling the legislative body than the executive. I've never seen a partisan provision in mayoral succession. If you may recall, a few years ago, when Governor Rowland left office and Jody Rell became governor, the president of the Senate succeeded to the lieutenant governorship.
right.
And so you had a Democratic lieutenant governor with
No, I
a
didn't, yeah, okay.
Republican governor, so at the state level. Now, the reality is, when was the last time you had split government in Norwalk?
What do you call split?
For my-
One or
Wow.
A
two?
Republican
my view, it's
mayor
like
and a Democratic council,
1843.
or vice versa, yeah.
It's been a
I
while.
would say, gosh. goes back to when-
1965.
No,
Right.
it's back to,
All right, I mean, so it may be a problem that doesn't exist, you know?
yeah, right now, it's not a problem that exists.
Okay, so we just need to discuss it and make a decision and,
I'll talk to the CC about it.
okay.
In B2,
And also
in B2,
see, if the president of the council is only elected for 1 year,
Yeah,
what
Well,
happens?
that's custom now, not by charter.
it's-
Okay, but in terms of the charter, what happens if something happens to the mayor 2 months after they
Been elected.
get elected and somebody steps in for the term of their
10
presidency,
months, 10 months,
then what happens?
exactly. This is not, it's not
I
written.
just think it needs to be defined better or done
Yeah.
something.
Let me hear that problem again.
Okay, the mayor is elected and 2 months into his term or her term, they leave. The president of the council, who's there for 1 year, steps in. What happens after that year?
You would have a new council president.
Well, you're gonna have a council president succeed. We
Yeah.
don't have provision in your charter for that. I have that in other
No.
charters where we have succession in the presidency of the council. And so the president who is, now, we don't have in Norwalk. And we can do this. It would be a new provision. And I'm happy to do it because I've done it in a lot of different communities. But we're not dealing with a temporary disability here.
Yeah.
We're talking about a vacancy. Do I
Right.
have-
So if I understand the concern, and maybe I don't. So
Mm,
you have a president of council appoints Joe Doe as mayor. But next year, the current president that made that appointment is no longer the president of council, maybe not even on
Well,
council.
the president of the council doesn't make an appointment.
It doesn't make the
They
president
recommend
becomes the
to the
mayor.
They
council.
become the
I
mayor.
recommend, no, wait a minute.
They become the mayor, Carl. And so what happens then is they become the mayor, but they're only elected for a year.
Right. So wouldn't they
So-
be appointing themselves to the term, not necessarily? to
Yeah,
the
no,
person?
it's to
It's
the
for the
term,
remainder of the term.
remainder of the term.
Okay, all right.
Now,
We have a new
so-
council
But
president.
let me explain, if you end up with a 4-year term, this gets more complicated.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because state law requires a special election to fill the remainder of the term. I mean, I believe that there's a pretty clear state law on that subject. And we don't have the issue of temporary disabilities. Now, that would be interesting, because if there's a temporary disability that takes place, the mayor has not life-threatening, but the mayor's going to be out of office for 2 months
Mhm.
to recover and really can't serve.
Right.
Let's say you have a standard for that. And that occurs in November of the year that the council president is serving, but the council president is replaced in December. If the council president is temporarily serving as mayor, do you have a second temporary mayor when the new council president is elected?
Right.
Uh,
We really need to do some work on this.
Yeah, but I didn't go in that direction because, again, I wasn't adding things, but we need to address the issue of temporary disability
Yeah.
as well. All right,
In B2, the word residence should be what, residents with, like, instead of CE with a TS.
1 second.
Okay.
Hmm,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's resident.
resident.
Yeah, residents.
President, yeah.
Yeah, it should be resident, shall be filled by the council from the electors of the city
Or resident of the district.
and or a resident, because if it's
Okay.
and or a resident of the
And
district.
or resident.
Yeah,
You brought up something a moment ago that seemed interesting, Steve, and that is, minority representation on council. And as it's been here for a long time, it's been, one party. Should that, I don't know how everybody feels about this, but in a case that where the mayor's office term is being replaced by council and it says the president, I understand, would move up. Should the other party be allowed to at least nominate somebody to be considered?
I've never seen that in any of the charters. I mean, there's nothing that
Not in
prevents
this
that.
scenario, it's
Well-
a straight succession. It's
Yeah,
not,
right.
it's not up for a vote.
Right.
I mean, the party, so, if the majority of the council is the same party as the mayor, they're still not.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Tyler. I mean, if it's not a
It's
vote.
only if they're not, if the majority leader or the president of the council is not of the same party.
Yeah.
Which,
What do you do if the council president says, no, I don't want the job?
well, there is
Then they need
something
to-
in here that it
Yeah.
keeps going on to.
Well, what happens if the council president doesn't want it, the council president needs to resign and then need to elect a new council president,
Okay,
And
then the
that-
coun-
that's
then the
what I'm
council
going
president-
somewhere.
can run for the vacancy in the council president's position. I mean.
Right, and then what could happen there, you could still become the council president again, because the person that's becomes the council president becomes the mayor, which causes a vacancy, which can allow that first council president to fill the vacancy there.
Yeah.
I know it sounds
Yeah.
crazy, but
Anyway, we need
Take
to
a
do
break.
more work on that, okay? So we'll come back.
I'm gonna draft some language I'm gonna draft some language on temporary disability and succession. I just drafted this for, Stamford had a real muddled situation. And New Haven has a good system. Just did a good one for Hamden. So let me draft some language for you, show you the different scenarios, because it did occur to me that we do not have a temporary disability provision in this charter.
Hmm,
So let me,
That's,
Okay, so we can move on.
yep,
Um,
yep,
yep, we can move on.
So I'm just going through my hard copy and see what the next issue is. Anybody have any issues?
There's just the councilmen of the city.
Well,
Instead
that's
of-
gone because
Yeah, you're gonna change that.
well, it's changed because I made it the president of the council.
That this is office of the mayor. Okay, then, you and I, Steve, had talked about the word such as being sort of archaic, and it comes up in number 3. In every case accepted the office of mayor, such vacancy, the vacancy shall be filled rather than such.
So, okay,
3, B3.
all right.
Is that, everybody okay with that? I mean, we
Yeah.
wouldn't say that.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, what's next?
Everybody's okay with your current standard of having the town and city committee?
Yeah, yes, Bill.
Right. I'm gonna take that note out. And I just wanted to make sure everybody was okay with that. All right, so I think the next area, let's see, move to Board of Estimate. Oh. Yeah, how does everybody feel about this election expenses? Whoops. Where am I?
Right, where are you now?
Right
Yeah.
here, 3-11. I was gonna move this to the Board of Estimates section.
Has to be approved by him anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, that's what it says.
Yeah.
So I
Yes,
just
yeah,
thought
yeah.
it should be in their section.
Makes sense.
All right,
Mhm.
I'll do that.
On 3-9, the council may enact an ordinance to provide for removal of any officer for cause. Should it be shall and not may?
Well, we don't know. I mean, we're just giving them the authority to do it.
Yeah.
We're
What if
not-
there's no
We're
other
not
officer?
requiring them to
Yeah,
have a standard.
no, because the standard exists in here for everybody. The question is, what other offices are there? Could be members of boards and commissions. I'm addressing this issue in the board and commission section. Actually, it's got to be addressed there, but it's discretionary because the mayor, removal of the mayor's here, removal of the council's here. So,
But this is for any officer for cause.
yeah,
So,
this is a current, let's see. Is this a current thing? Yeah, it's a current provision. I don't have strong feelings. I mean, this is the current language.
Can you go back to that BET section that you just brought? It was in green. So am I reading this right? That maybe I'm not. That this says something to the effect that elections would be paid for, all elections would be paid for by the citizens, by taxpayer money?
Well, they are already.
Yeah.
Who do you think pays for them?
not what you're thinking.
You're not talking about
running for
individual,
office.
you're not
This
talking about
is-
individual expenses for somebody
No.
running. for the-
No,
No,
Oh, okay.
Expenses of the town clerk or the registrar of voters.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah. I'd like to see a council member apply for funds from the BET.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been done.
I mean, so what do you want to do with this mayor shall? I mean,
Right.
Well, I think it's important to have provisions to remove people when there's cause.
Yeah, well, doesn't, and this is from a strict novice here. Doesn't may give me the ability to do so? Shall gives me the authority to do it?
No,
No.
requirement, shall
Required.
equals requirement.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's some courts that don't say that, but generally, that's the general understanding. But may is discretionary.
Right,
But the question is, I'm not sure what officers they were talking about. Because most of the people that you care about, there's provisions for removal of them already. There's provisions for removal of board and commission members. There's provisions for removal for mayor, council member. So I'm not sure what they had in mind when they adopted this in 1913.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm not sure what their intent was. I didn't take it out, but I wasn't sure what that meant. So that's why I didn't focus on it.
well, I think it's worth figuring it out and either getting rid of it or changing it or whatever, but okay. Especially now knowing that it goes back to 1913.
yeah, back then it was settled. if
We
you go by me,
probably
it's right.
have we might have an ordinance already.
At your pleasure, tell me,
Also, what-
I have no position on it, so there's no legal right or wrong here. It's really a discretionary judgment you guys can
Well,
make.
can be educated to the fact of whether we have one or not. We just check with whomever you have to check with.
Alright. Okay. Got it. Then we're into chapter 6, the other elected officials. I don't think there are any outstanding issues here? This is your 110. There is no merit system here, right?
yeah,
So this comes out.
it comes out.
Good. So that's gone.
don't have those.
Under the Register of Voters, subsection 3, A3, they act jointly together. Does that mean the two registrars work together?
Yes,
Why don't we simply say act together?
act together. Right.
Acting,
because-
yeah. Acting
that's-
in
yeah.
concert, acting in concert together.
Together,
Acting together.
Together.
yeah.
Before we
leaving.
move on, I need to go back to fees. Number 5. It says that the fees collected by the town clerk go to the town. Should it be the city?
People make the check out to the town clerk's office.
Yeah, but where does the money go? It goes, you transfer it to, it's,
Some goes to the state, some goes to the city.
All fees cleared by town should be paid. So maybe.
Why don't we say shall be paid as provided by
General statute.
paid,
Paid
as
to the
provided-
city except as otherwise?
yeah, I
Right.
mean, there's no.
There's no town.
There's no town depository.
yeah, so why don't we say to the city, except as otherwise provided by the general
Right.
statute?
Yeah,
Fine.
that's a good.
Okay.
good
Good.
catch.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
Okay,
So then we did that, we fixed that compensation.
yeah,
Question on compensation. Talk to registrars and mayor's office about compensation. Do we know how this, does anybody know anything about this section?
Was it the registrar of voters?
Yeah,
this is for running the elections. And
These are basically what the pay is set for.
so can we check with the registrars on that and come back to it?
Good, I'll do that.
And then we probably take out any specific dollar amounts, right? Isn't that what we talked
Yes.
about?
Right.
Yes,
We take that out and then we
Yeah.
just make a reference here as to who makes the determination, maybe,
Right.
and when.
Mm.
All right. Okay, all right, and then the last
The constable.
sections I had here, we're reviewing these sections. So I'll
Right.
just, so we'll
Yeah.
leave those the way they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now education. Whoops. Almost knocked everything off my desk. Board of Education. Composition, so there's no. Oh, yeah. So the big issues, and we really should invite them to come here. The appointment of the superintendent is, and I changed the language to reflect what the statute says. The board elects a superintendent. That's the term that's used in the statute. They appoint them, they hire them, but they call it under statutes an election. And such members, and then other appointments. And Leisha had a question on this section. I'll have to ask her what that was. I don't remember what that was. But I think we need to have the Board of Ed people come before us.
Right,
I agree.
yeah, because
Yeah.
this is a lot
Yeah.
to make a decision on. that
Yeah.
We need more information on.
Sure. Of the board. And let me tell you, their vacancy section is pretty interesting. I think that's from there. I wouldn't have changed this, I don't believe. Yeah, that's in the current charter. They deal with because they have the 4-year term, so they deal with the breakdown. New Haven's Board of Alders has something like this for
It's
vacancies
16.
on the board.
Mm.
But if it's a 2-year term, it makes no difference. But if we go to a 4-year term for mayor and council, we need to think about what happens in the first 2 years, special
Right.
election, and the remainder of that. So this is an example of what you may end up doing. And again, their vacancies are filled by the political party.
Right.
Now so they're filled by the political party. It's such an odd provision, although as I told you, the registrar of voters are done that way by state statute. So who am I to question the General Assembly? So there it is. We'll leave it the way it is. But do you want to have the Board of Ed come the same night you bring these other people in?
I don't think the other ones will be here that long.
Yeah,
Right.
we could do the other ones first,
Okay.
quickly.
So Jordan, you're here.
Yeah, yes,
We'll add the Board of Ed
Yep.
and the superintendent, I guess.
yes,
All right,
of course.
all right. All right, and then,
And under this section, though, there are several references to their reporting to the mayor on a monthly basis. In section
9.
9.1 and 9.3. And I'd like to know before they come, and also at 9.5, is this really being done or not?
Mm.
No, I don't think so.
I don't either, but I think we need to know what is being done so we know how to discuss the issue
I
Might be
think
good-
that.
and what to expect.
Might be good to get both sides on that as well, right? I mean, is the board doing it or not doing it? And if they're not doing it, does the city wish they were doing it?
Yeah, and why aren't they doing it?
Right.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many you recall, but it was a few months ago. I think it was a few months ago. There became an issue where somebody was bringing up, social media and some other places that, the mayor runs the board reports to the mayor, and I think the mayor came out and said, no, they do not. So he doesn't think that they report to him.
these are reports, these
These are financial reports.
I understand.
Okay,
and they should be reporting to the city. I mean, that's their department. So, yeah, I have a note, is this happening?
Yep. I found 3 places. I don't know if there were more, but anyway.
Where else besides 10?
Oh gosh, let me see. I had moved on. 9.3 and 9.5.
I'm sorry, 9?
9.3 budget and 9.5 reporting requirements.
Hmm.
Oh, compliance and cooperation, okay. All right, I wasn't that far. That's new. That's my proposal.
Oh,
And they're both my proposals, 142. And yeah, I had this conversation with the CFO. And that's how these ended up in here. These are standard provisions that I put in charters.
so, but why aren't they color coded or referenced?
Why aren't they color
I mean,
coded?
when you've added something, you've.
It says new on it. It says new. It was a red line in,
Well,
So I just-
I have a copy that has no color on it.
well, it doesn't have color on it.
Oh.
There was a red line.
There was another document that said. there
In
was
the
one
earlier
line.
version that I gave you, it was a red line showing it was new, and the annotation says new.
Okay,
So at this point, this is a second. This is our, this is my 6th iteration on this chapter, but when I gave you the first iteration, it
okay.
showed
I'll
as a
check.
brand new section. These are brand new sections, both on budget and compliance and cooperation. I was asked to put together, and I did, a memo that explained how state law works, because boards of ed are very often saying, we're not doing that. We're not doing this. We're the Board of Ed. We could do whatever we want.
Right,
These 2
okay,
sections are designed to address that issue. So they're new.
okay, I missed that. Okay, so now,
Okay.
And is 144 new, and 144 is new as well. Reporting requirements. Yeah, all those sections are new.
Should there be anything in the charter that talks about curriculum
No.
or
Well,
about
because
making?
curriculum it's a state issue, not a local issue. I had
I'm thinking more of awareness than what the actual curriculum is.
yeah,
Or what?
awareness.
it came up in the context in one of my charters of critical race theory, and I said, we don't want to go there.
Oh,
I
God.
mean,
no,
that's
no.
No, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm just talking.
no,
about-
I'm not suggesting, but that's really governed by state law. It's really not,
Not for this.
it's not part of
Not for
municipal
this,
governance,
exercise.
governance per se.
All right, well, you've given us an answer in case we're asked that question by somebody.
Okay. All right, that's it on that. These are historical provisions. These are the historical council districts, 11-1, exactly the way they are right now. Those districts will go away when there's redistricting. So that chapter, I think, says subject to repeal or sunset. Let me put it sunset.
So under 11.1. You're saying that the council districts are gonna change.
Yep,
Yes,
so Article 11 will go away.
Yeah.
Actually, I should probably make the taxing district Article 11 and make this Article 12. Because this is section, the historical provision section will go away. Why have an empty chapter, basically? So I'll fix that.
yeah, flip them.
Why does that happen? Okay. Oh, because I have it on. Yeah, so I'll change that and make the taxing districts Article 11. And so what I've done here, this is partial because as I told you, I'm moving everything out of the charter, the body of the charter, and putting them into the taxing. If it has to do with the taxing districts, it's going into the taxing district section. So it lays out the 6 districts, the officers. These were all in the body of the document. Boards of commissioners, common council powers with regard to the taxing district. All these things are taxing district powers that will be in the taxing district chapter.
Okay,
Article.
so here, we don't have the 6th district defined.
That's because it's not defined currently, so I don't know what to tell you. It may be defined, Patsy, it may be defined, let me take a look.
It was constituted differently than the others, and I don't know the subtlety of it, but,
It may not be in the charter at all. I mean, I've seen it referred to in the charter. Remember, this is not the entire taxing district section, because these are just sections that I'm going to toss into that document.
Yeah.
These are only the
Right.
sections that are coming out of the
Article 3.
Article 3. When you I'm looking at it now, and this doesn't, first district.
In C, you do mention the 6th taxing
yeah, right.
taxing
But
district.
that's the only place it
That's
comes
the only
up.
place it's mentioned.
And as I said, I know it was constituted differently.
Yeah, it's
So we,
not me. I just took this out of the,
yeah,
current
I know,
document.
I know. We're
Yeah.
not blaming you. We're
No, no, I
blaming,
know.
we're blaming
Um,
some other people.
yeah, what I'm looking at right now is the
We need
entire
to
section.
clarify it. We need some clarification here.
I'm taking a look at how the 6th is dealt with in the current document. Hold on, I'm at the second.
I don't think it is, as I recall, looking at it a couple of months ago. And I
Yes, it
brought
is.
it up
Yes, it
then.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
page 178. 1 second.
okay,
I'm looking at I'm looking at the big document right now, so
Right.
you don't have that in front of you. Yeah, it's got the boundaries, the body politic, the commissioners, everything is in here. So the 6th district is laid out in the current body.
and does it have a year that it was established?
Hold on. Footnote 700. I mean, this is derived, these boundaries are derived in 1953.
Mhm. Yeah,
No, but there are provisions that go back to 1921, 1967, 1923, 1925,
I think 67, we changed it because of sewer. construction.
1951. You know, there's a lot of different
Yeah,
references. Nothing ancient though, all, yeah, not as, I thought they'd be more ancient.
yeah, and somehow we've got to articulate that simply, not to
Right.
confuse things, but
I've been asking who represents the taxing districts?
they, where?
Who's the lawyer? Who represents, I mean, are there
Well,
different lawyers? who
Well,
represent-
each have their
Each have
own,
their own-
yeah, they're private entities. They each have their own
Attorneys.
attorneys and
Well,
everything.
they're
else.
separate entities, but they're in our charter, so they're not private, they're public entities.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I meant
Yeah,
independent.
They all-
I meant
they each have their separate-
independent from the city.
yeah. So, yeah, so those sections are gonna be moved into into that section. What we may want to think about is, I don't even know who to talk to. Do I talk to their?
Well, Tom Livingston lives in the 6th taxing
All right,
district.
I'll talk to Tom.
And there are commissioners there that you can contact and talk to them. But, you know, this document references 1913 when the other districts consolidated. And I know that the 6th district came in later, so I think it's important to document that.
Yep. So then we go to the recommended sections for repeal. And town meetings are coming out. References to the rights and immunities of the city and of Norwalk, South Norwalk, East Norwalk, the fire district and town of Norwalk. The deputy corporation counsel have no objection to these coming out. Again, no objection from the corporation counsel to any of these provisions. The city wards, he had no objection to, and could find no other legal opinions regarding the wards. I asked him to look into it. There were no opinions regarding what the wards are, except they go back to what?
1913.
1913 and
1913.
1930, and it was repealed in 69, by the way, and then yeah, it was repealed and modified in 69. So the wards had some pertinence as recently as 1969, but the Corp Council could find no legal opinions pertaining to them. All these other sections, I think that the registrars looked at these. Rick set it up and had the registrars look at these.
When they were repealed in 69, I think Attorney Frank Murphy was corporation counsel. And he's still practicing law, so you might learn something from him.
All right. These other provisions on lists of voters are all governed by the state. I think the registrars looked at this section, they were
Right.
comfortable with it coming out. And then bonds and notes was coming out as well. There's no need for that. Minimum fees for attorneys, for students attending a technical institute in 1959. That's coming out. So those are all subject to repeal. And that's it. That's the doc. So it still needs some work, but it's organized and it's in pretty good shape. It's not ready for a vote because I think we have some substantive issues we've got to address. But it's coming along. Everybody comfortable with that?
Yeah, I
looks
think
good.
we're
Yeah,
making some real.
Now that we're
progress.
seeing it on paper, it looks a lot, makes it a little more rewarding.
What's that?
I said, now that we're seeing it on paper, it makes it a little more, rewarding and coming forth here, what we're doing.
So our plan is to invite the Board of Education and superintendent for our next meeting. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yes,
I believe so.
And then also the sheriff, the treasurers, the constable. And we have them first on the agenda.
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
A quick question about the online comment we received that was distributed today
Right.
from John Levin. How do we go about responding to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Steve, can you?
I haven't seen the comments, so I don't know.
I didn't see the comment either.
What?
So and this is Jordan Chance, just for the record, I will provide that comment to both of you as well. So John Levin was actually in the audience tonight. I know that he has some background documents that he was looking for, but there were several questions on there that are more detailed, and they're looking more for like a detailed response. And that's I guess up to this commission, how you want to respond to that. If you want me to respond to that on your recommendations, or if you would rather respond directly, happy to do so.
I'd like to have time to read it.
Yeah, no,
you
of
know,
course.
Because it says here that it was received on the 20th.
Yep,
February.
I went into the website today and received it. He actually was here last night.
I saw-
that
yeah.
He submitted it, so I went in today and took that out.
I think some of them are easier to respond to than others. I mean, one of them is, are there towns and can I think that allow for the recall of the mayor? That's
That
fair.
what?
The answer is no.
Right, I mean, that one's pretty simple. We can get back to him right away with that. I mean, some of the other ones are just suggestions. We can say, thank you for your suggestion. We'll take it into consideration, but the one in particular I was thinking was if he's asking for specific materials.
He wants
I
all,
don't know what the answer, do we,
Yeah, but we don't have a person that can actually do that.
we don't have that at the moment.
Yeah.
What kind of materials?
he wants all, I want to see the distributed, anything distributed to us, our proposed language, our reference materials, and any other stuff.
Well, that's all been posted.
And I spoke with John today. I emailed him
Yeah.
what was all on the background for today, so he was aware of all that. And I spoke with him when he was
Tonight.
here. He was
You
aware.
can see it. I mean, it's all the stuff that we
Yeah,
put up on the
exactly.
screen,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, everything that I provide to the commission
Yep.
is posted.
Yep.
And-
There's
well,
nothing that's not posted.
Yeah, that's, and I agreed. And I think, I mean, maybe to the point, his first in the list of 4 questions or requests is that it's difficult to find the suggestion page or whatever. So I mean, I think that was so, I made a note, you know, in my pad here that I want to spend some time between now and the next meeting thinking about how we promote this or get this out
Yeah,
there, or
right.
maybe put something on the webpage. So maybe we can kind of tie those 2 things together to make it a little easier for John or whoever else to find this information and go over it if they want to.
And early tonight, I mentioned that I'd like to focus on our target for a public hearing or participation. Do you have any suggestions, Steve?
For anytime you want. I think you should do one sooner than later.
Okay,
I would say that if you want to do it, since, people know we're looking at the term issue. I would say that we're looking for public testimony on that issue in particular. And maybe take the first hour of the next meeting for public input.
well, that's not gonna work if the Board of Education is coming.
All right, well, then
Yeah,
do it 2
so
meetings
that-
from now, then do it 2
yeah.
meetings from now, do it at the meeting after that.
The
Okay,
first one in April?
Yeah, and keep
Yeah.
in mind, guys, I am gonna be producing a lot of documents, so we may have to convene some extra meetings
yeah,
here.
okay, well. I'm
How do I
agreeable.
unshare? I can't get out of share. Jordan,
Mhm.
I have no,
All right, but anyway, in the meantime, we're gonna do Board of Ed and then the other elected officials that sheriff, treasurer, constable. Next meeting, and then the following meeting, some kind of public
Hearing. Right.
participation.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And Steve, maybe tomorrow, are you free? I could just call you about this request from Mr. Levin.
sure.
How to respond.
around.
to him.
I'm
Could
around.
you,
He's come to multiple meetings.
could I see that request? I would really like to see it.
Well,
I'll send that along.
yeah,
You know what? I don't
I'll
think I
send it
got
out
it.
to the whole crew.
Okay, because for some reason, I'm not seeing some of the stuff you're sending, but
Yeah. I didn't-
well, he just handed it to us tonight.
It was just a paper handout, I think, for today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one page.
It'll get around.
We'll send it to Jordan, right?
Yeah,
Tomorrow. Jordan will
just what-
send it to you tomorrow.
okay.
every commission, I mean, we have I assume, do we have a website?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so most commissions, it's interesting because both Stanford and Norwalk and actually New Haven thus far have not been getting a lot of generated emails. Because what I, as a rule, have done is as public comment comes in, they come to me and I put a grid together because we want to add them to the agenda to look at. I've been surprised that there hasn't been much in the way of public interaction.
I've only received one, and that
I
was
got the
from
one that I
from
sent
the
to you, Steve, from
councilwoman.
Councilwoman
Nora.
Jill Geiger.
Yeah.
Okay, a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Move.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
We're adjourned.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Steve.
thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Steve.
good night.
Night all.
Thanks, Dave.
Everybody. Night.